said that, well, it's not because I'm a bad professor or because of the books I signed up for.
Not the church, not the state. Women must decide their fate. Not the church, not the state. Women must decide their fate. Not the church. Pro-life men have got to go. When you get pregnant, let us know.
That was the reception I received at St. Mary's University when I talked about abortion. Though I invited everyone to share their questions and comments at the end of the talk, abortion advocates wouldn't let me finish. They said I would only be allowed to talk about abortion if I had the ability to give birth. That's the stereotypical reaction pro-life men get when they talk about abortion. They're told it's a fundamental women's rights issue, and therefore they should have no say on the topic. Of course, there's a double standard. One of the protesters was a man, and many leading abortion advocates are men. Abortion is legal thanks to men like Pierre Trudeau, Henry Morgentaler, and the male judges on the Supreme Court in 1988. Abortion advocates would argue men who support abortion are at least respecting the rights of women. They are speaking out for women. Yet if you think about how they justify that double standard, you realize there's a problem. Abortion advocates are speaking what they think is truth, that they're defending women's rights. But that's their truth, and they have to prove that. Because if abortion deals with another person's body, and the pro-life claim is that abortion does, then all pro-life men are doing is speaking out for that other person. That's not sexist at all. One can't accuse pro-life men of being sexist and male abortion advocates of speaking what's right, unless one first explains the nature of what abortion is. Arguments don't have genders. You don't have to be a woman, for example, to know that violence against women is wrong, or that rape is wrong. There are certain actions that are just wrong regardless of one's experience. And when you think about the abortion debate, it's simply unreasonable to believe men can't get involved. Firstly, women can't get pregnant without them. Men have an essential role in causing pregnancy. Secondly, the law forces men who father a baby to pay child support if that child is not aborted. And I'm sure many men have wondered why it makes sense to say that men should have no role when it comes to deciding what to do with an unplanned pregnancy. But as soon as the woman decides to keep the baby, they are forced to pay for that life. If men have no responsibility if a woman chooses abortion, then why should they have a responsibility if birth is chosen? And frankly, men are intimately affected by abortion.
So I went down to New York City when I was 21 years old. I did very well and I got in a Broadway show, and I had a girlfriend at the time who I was really proud of. My career was rising. I'd been in a co-starred in a movie for Paramount Pictures and Columbia Pictures, hanging out with Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Cruise and that generation of actors, and things were doing really well. I had a girlfriend who was a medical doctor, a professional dancer, and she came to me and she said, David, you know that I'm on the pill, right? I'm like, yeah, I know that. She goes, you know I know how to take the pill, right? I'm like, yeah, I know that. She says, well, what you don't know, David, is that the pill doesn't always work. I'm pregnant. And I looked at her, I'm like, oh. And my career flashed before my eyes, you know, my self-centeredness and her career, and, you know, she was being considered to be one of the first Canadian woman in space. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe we should start the family later or something like that. We're not married or anything like that. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. And we went through with an abortion. And she called me up the night of the abortion. She went back to her home city for the abortion. And she called me up and she said, David, when I was on that table and they were removing the pieces of my baby, I had this overwhelming urge to say, put that back. You know, it was like she couldn't deny her motherhood with all the career and with all of the successful things that she'd done in her life, the education and everything. She couldn't deny that part of her that, you know, that was carrying a baby. And I didn't know how to respond to that. It's like, it was too late. It was too late. And so I saw a woman who was beautiful, strong, talented. I saw her crumble before my eyes. And I got really messed up after that. A lot of people say that abortion doesn't affect men. I'm living proof that it does. I fell into bulimia. I was vomiting up to 6 times a day. Started using a lot of drugs, cocaine, drinking a lot, mouthing off to directors. I got in a show that a lot of New York performers would love to be in. I was the rock and roll cat in the U.S. National Tour of Cats. And I was out on that tour in Philadelphia. We were going to open up in Chicago. And I blew out my voice completely from kind of the way I was living. And that was the end of my career. I was 23 years old.
I think most fair-minded people will realize that we shouldn't censor a whole group just because of their gender. And besides, if we truly want to help women who are going through crisis pregnancy, the last thing we want to do is create a dividing line between them and their partners. We have to understand abortion isn't a women's rights issue, it's a human rights issue.
It was only after the fact that I began to see the full ramifications, not only in my own life, but in my girlfriend's life. And I went on a journey, and it was during this journey of just trying to figure out what's wrong with me that I really had to accept the responsibility for participating in the taking of my own child's life. I basically hired a hitman to take the life of my child because my child was not convenient to me and my girlfriend.